Assalamu alaikum everyone. I am Manahil Rumar Jawwali and I am from Karachi, Pakistan. Today we have the privilege of hosting a distant guest, a multifaceted individual whose work spans the realm of podcasting, coaching, and entrepreneurship. I am thrilled to introduce none other than Roy Coughlan. So, Coughlan, welcome to our show. It's a pleasure to have you here today. So, how are you?
I'm very well, and thank you very much for having me on your show.
It's my pleasure. So, thank you so much for coming. Sir, please introduce yourself for my viewers.
So, I'm Irish. I lived in a place called Cork, which is in the south of Ireland, second biggest city in Ireland. And 16 years ago, I moved to Poland. I was working in construction for most of my life. I studied construction economics. And then I was serial entrepreneur, found companies in about 5 countries, over 15 companies. And my main thing now is like podcasting. I have 5 podcasts and I'm a podcast coach.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you so much for your introduction. So now let's move on to questions. My first question is on your screen. Can you tell us a bit your journey into the world of podcasting and how you become a podcasting coach?
Absolutely. So, what happened is I was doing a load of property in Ireland, and when the crash happened, I lost everything. And I was the CEO of a load of companies. And usually, when you're the CEO of companies, it's limited liability company. It's just kind of done and dusted. But in Poland, you're personally liable. So I ended up being personally liable for 5 million euro. And through dealing with that, I realized the amount of corruption with judges, with banks, with bailiffs, with everything. And like a load of people, unfortunately, they throw in the towel because this is an international thing. This is something that was orchestrated around the world where the banks stopped lending. They were throwing money at one stage, then they stop. So even developers that are building, nobody can buy even if they want that. So through that journey and pain, I kind of realized people need to learn about this. So I went to an event. It was a Mind Valley event, and it was called What's Your Quest? And when I was at that event, I said, I need to expose this. This is going to be my quest. I'm going to start explaining to everybody how the system is working. And also at the event, there was 2 brilliant speakers, and I hated public speaking. So I said, I need to actually start liking to be good at public speaking. So I came back to Poland and I joined Toastmasters. Then I joined another Toastmasters club. Then I formed a club. Then I became a coach of a club. And I got DTM within 3 years, which is kind of rare. That's like the top level in it. I started doing competitions, getting into the final of 5 countries, did an open mic TEDx, did open comedy, and just totally, and started reading loads of books, watching TEDx videos, just studying how to be a better speaker because, like previously, I'm extremely shy. Like I would go into meetings and I would quiver. So it just shows that if you tell yourself, I'm a bad speaker, it's because you're telling yourself that story. And you can change it immediately once you decide, I want to be a good speaker. Because I had a new mission. My mission was to get a message out. So then I went to another event and there was a guy teaching a workshop on podcasting. I never even thought of that. And I thought, okay, this is a brilliant way for me to get my message out. But I didn't want to start it off on kind of the corruption one. I said speaking is great because I've access to so many different people speaking. So I formed the first podcast I did, which was 5 years ago, was the speaking podcast. And I basically have loads of people from around the world telling you how to be a better speaker, how to be a coach, how to do the marketing. The next one was the meditation because through my journey of losing everything, I just found meditation. I started doing meditation. First of all, it was the 6 phase meditation where you're talking yourself through a meditation journey. And the main things that really helped me was the act of forgiveness. Because when people are hurting you, whether it's the banks, whether it's companies or business partners or whatever, when we're angry, it's we're hurting. They're not thinking about you. They're not worrying about that. So when you have anger, It's your suffering. So that's why a lot of people have stress related issues. So I actually learned how to forgive. And the other thing was gratitude with the meditation. Like, what are you grateful for? Because normally, when you're going through turmoil, you're not thinking of the good things, you're thinking of what you're lacking. But if you start thinking, I love when my son cuddles me, I love when I'm having a nice cup of coffee, I love going for a walk in the forest. When you start thinking of the beautiful things, you start attracting more beautiful things into your life. So through that, and going to these different events around the world, I formed the meditation podcast, and it's where I'm interviewing people, but I'm also putting up all different forms of meditation from 1 minute up to over 2 hours. Because some people say, "Oh, I don't have 10 minutes to meditate." Do a meditation for a minute, and there's all different types. So that was the next one. The next podcast was the Learn Polish podcast, and because I moved to Poland, I started trying to be fluent in it. I started doing Rosetta Stone, Pimsner, getting classes, and it wasn't really working. I got to a certain level, but I wasn't improving as much as I wanted. So I said, okay, maybe I start listening to podcasts. They'll help me. And the only podcasts that I could find were either scripted or only in Polish. I don't like scripted podcasts. And if it's only in Polish, I can't learn the language. So I basically formed with my ex-wife, who was my Polish teacher, but we've got a good relationship, the Polish podcast. And it's been number one in a lot of countries, and it's still going well. It's got over 1 million views on YouTube and 800,000 on the audio. So it's doing extremely well. The next one then was the one, my kind of baby, let's say, the Awakening podcast. That's the one exposing the fraud and corruption, but with solutions. And I experienced a lot of censorship because I read a lot of books. I read about 100 books a year. So if I hear something, even from an interview, I won't believe it. And even if I say something today, don't believe anything anyone says, but just be curious about it and then start investigating yourself. So when I started putting out the interviews, I got strikes on YouTube. Eventually, I got kicked off YouTube with my Awakening podcast channel. I've got my own personal one now that's still there. I got kicked off Linktree. I got even off LinkedIn. They gave me a strike, removed me for a week. My Facebook, all the thumbs up and everything started disappearing. Before I get a lot of interaction, then it's nothing. And you just have to kind of accept that. So what happened is, when I got removed from YouTube, I took a screenshot and I started sharing it. And I actually jumped from the top 1% to the top 0.5%. So I put everything onto BitChute. So now my BitChute is actually doing very well, and for that channel. And I've interviewed lots of famous people: Dr. Peter McCullough, Mickey Willis. He's one of the guys that's, he created Plandemic, which has like the biggest documentary, something like 1 billion downloads. So I've had very famous guests. And like, even for yourself, what you're doing, because I've even mentioned before we recorded how professional you are and what you're doing. I mean, I think that is incredible, the screen that you've done and even the questions coming up. And it's like doing all these different things, they all benefit, they're all helping. And even because I know with I think it's Rehan Alawala, like every one of you could upload the content because you've already done the interviews. You could all create a podcast for free, because if you go to Anchor, which is Spotify, it's free, and you could just create it, put up a logo, upload each interview that you do, and it's just another form of marketing for what you're doing, and more people will see what you're doing. So if you're kind of selling some other kind of service, whether you're doing, website designs or whatever it is, people will find you maybe from the podcast. And like the next one I did then was the crypto podcast. So I saw there was a load of fraud and corruption in that, and I didn't want to include it into the Awakening one because not everybody understands blockchain technology. Not everybody likes it. And I said, if I put it into that, I will lose a lot of my audience. So I created the crypto podcast, and that's doing very well as well. 4 have been in the top 0.5%, and the crypto is currently in 1.5%. And how I started, I know it's a long-winded answer, but how I actually started the coaching then, loads of people are constantly asking me to help them set up a podcast. And I'll always help. I helped a load of people, but nobody gives you any money for it. Nobody thanks you. They just expect you to do it. And it's a lot of time. And with not only the 5 years that I've been doing it, but I'm constantly buying books on it, watching videos, looking at the best and trying to improve. And I said, I actually deserve to make an income from this because of the level that I've got. Because there's a lot of coaches out there. Some of them, they're not even in the top 10%. So having four in the top 0.5% and just kind of stopping people using me, because, like even probably what you're doing, people will say, oh, how do I do that? They don't expect all the time that you've researched setting up the page, how to interview people, how to reach out and contact them. They just expect you to help them. So I think you have to kind of get the value in yourself so that you're not going to be used.
All right, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for explaining and thank you so much for your answer. So now let's move on to next question. My next question is on your screen. Tell us about your podcast, Awakening. What inspired you to start it and what kind of topics do you cover?
Okay. So I kind of covered some of that in that. And I love the way that you've actually, with your research and everything, you've all the questions written out is brilliant. It's fantastic, because it allows other people to see it as well. Because even if you even take, like, say, the deaf community, they can read that, they can lip read me. And you're serving another community, whereas a lot of people don't do that. So I commend you on that. So with the awakening, it's really, I don't like what's going on in the world. It's like some people think, it's just the way it is. It's not. It's orchestrated. And the more you start researching it, the more you realize this isn't just in Ireland. This isn't just in the UK. There's powerful people that are ruling the whole world. And I don't really see any political party that's there to serve humanity. They're serving the leaders that control them. And what I try to do is get on doctors and talk about health, talk about, like, one of the guests that I've had, and I'm helping him get on shows, is he helps people with anxiety and stress, depression, or addictions. And he's got a system where he's got a 90% success rate, which is totally unusual, because you hear people going to therapists for 20 years and it's just a money racket. Like, if a therapist is good, you wouldn't be going there for 20 years. You'd be resolved after a few months. And basically, he only charges if he's successful. So, like, I love having guests like that are kind of changing the industry and making things different. Same with schools. I've kind of looked into the education system, and like, when you think of when I was going to school, like, we start in Ireland at 4. It's like, put your finger up to your mouth, cross your hands, and kind of just sit there. I mean, a child at 4 should be running around playing, and you're conditioned to kind of comply to corporations. That's what they want. They want you to actually go in and start working for these people. And when I started investigating that, I got a few different guests on that. I actually got a strike on my personal channel for a woman that was showing the unions, the corruption in the unions in America. Like, why would Google find that a threat? That's not, and everything she said was true. So by having these people, I don't just want to have people coming on and talk about negativity, because there's a lot of podcasts or shows, whatever, they're doing that, and we all know that you don't want to be surrounded by negativity. You want to kind of, one, tell people what's going on, be aware, but give solutions. It's like, what can we do? Go into the school, try to take over the board. Don't just put your child into a school and let the school do what they want. Start talking to your child, see what's happening, and by having guests like that and with solutions, you're kind of trying to create the world that you want. So that's the main purpose of the awakening.
All right, thank you so much for your answer. So, as the founder of the meditation podcast, what benefits do you believe meditation can bring to people's life, and how has it influenced your own journey?
Okay. So, like, we at the start, I kind of went deep into this and I mentioned a bit about the meditation, but I love your questions. You have fantastic questions. So, with meditation, I think the most important thing is, some people think, I can't meditate. My head is doing 90. I can't relax. They think you have to sit in silence, close your eyes, and think of nothing. That's not how meditation is. Like, meditation is just being present, and also kind of brings in mindfulness. Like for me, grounding is very important, where you're in your bare feet when you're outside or even in the house, that you're touching the ground. That's good for you, that you're paying attention to everything that's going on. So like if you're looking at nature, watching the birds, watching butterflies and things like that, you're just totally present to what's going on. And that's a form of meditation. The same way, like some people fish, and you go like, someone is fishing. I don't get that. People say that's boring, but I'm convinced that is their form of meditation, because they just throw out the line, they just sit there, and they're in peace and silence, and without even realizing it, they know it's brilliant from they really like it. But if you kind of think of it, how is that enjoyable? Like most people don't get it, but it's enjoyable if it's bringing it to a state of peace and calm. And it could, perhaps the same as with golf and stuff like that. If you can stay in a mindful thing, because you're out for a few hours, you're not being distracted. Most people don't use their phones. Some do, obviously, but most people have their phones off just because of etiquette. And I think that's another form of meditation. There's a lot of things that we don't even realize. And it's, I think it's just finding what gives you calmness, and just pay attention to yourself. Like what's making you stress, and like a lot of the time it can be down to foods we're eating and everything. And when you're conscious of all these different things, so all of the guests that I get on, they're talking about different things like that. They're talking about chakras, they're talking about yoga, breath work, sound meditation. And I believe by having all different things, that someone will resonate with you and you go, oh, I get that. And that's all you need. You need to just go, oh, that sounds like something that would be good for you. Because when I went to different events, I started doing breathwork. I'd never done breathwork before. And I was getting incredible, colorful visualizations from that. I had witnessed people release trauma. They realized that they were abused when they were young, and they released it. And then so their stress was coming from something they didn't even realize happened. But through breathwork, they were able to do it. I've gone into lakes in Poland in the winter, and just by breathing, I can go into the ice water. There's people with hatchets breaking the ice, and I can go into the water for 15 minutes, no problem. And I think a lot of that is just down to mindfulness and meditation.
All right, great. Thank you so much for your answer. So now let's move on to next question. My next question is on your screen. Could you share some insights into your podcast, Land Polish? What motivated you create a podcast for language learning?
So that one was really for myself. It was because I needed to be better, and I was creating it. Obviously, I knew it would help a lot of people. So, for example, when you go into school or even learn a language, normally they're always pushing grammar, making sure you know it well. I remember when I came to Poland, they were talking about English. They were saying the 16 tenses in English: simple present, simple past, simple future. And I was looking at them going, we don't use that. We just speak past, present, and future. And most of the time it's just the words. So the way I'm creating it is, I just want people to have a conversation. If you really need it for business and you need to kind of move to the next level, obviously you can get a teacher and you can go deeper. But and it's not that we don't cover grammar. We cover a little bit, but it's mainly about different topics. We might talk about a garage, we might talk about going to the city, going into the shop, buying stuff, everyday items. And I do the shows like 5 to 10 minutes. We have a nice graphic that's up there. So we have the audio and we have the video. I post it to all the different channels like BitChute, Rumble, and YouTube. And it's basically how I know I learn. And the fact that it's had combined over 2 million views means that it's working. And it's been number one in so many countries. I mean, sometimes there I see in a part of Africa it gets into number one, or Cyprus or Malta or something like that. And it's kind of it's interesting, I think something like 137 countries, because you get the statistics telling you where you are. So there's people all over the world, because like the Irish went everywhere, so the Polish is the same. And what happens is somebody then marries somebody, and maybe for the kids or when they're coming back to meet the grandparents, they'd like to have to have some sort of conversation. And instead of getting a book and making someone go through the whole grammar and read this and write that properly, because when you go to school, they try to make sure everything is perfect. But what happens is it sucks the energy out of us. We're no longer motivated. So the purpose of the podcast is to have fun, friendly conversation. I think 5 to 10 minutes, you're not getting tired. And if it's good, you listen 2 or 3 times, or maybe go back and listen to a few more if you decide to say, okay, I'll put half an hour in today. And I think you're more inclined to learn a language better by listening to 5-10 minutes a day than doing 1 hour once or twice a week.
All right, great. So I want to share my experience that when I'm not taking interviews, my English is not well. I don't understand English and I don't speak English. So when I take interviews in English, so my English is well. And now I completed 100 interviews in English. So I understand English and I speak English and I listen English. So before in this, I don't know what someone says in English. I don't. I really don't understand English, but I'm very impressed about the interviews that I learned English. So interview is very beneficial for us for learning new languages. I'm right.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, brilliant. Yeah. And you just said there you don't know English. You're speaking to me in English and I understood everything you said, so you're doing fantastic.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir. So now let's move on to next question. My next question is, what has been the most rewarding aspect of your podcast journey, and do you have any memorable moment or experiences you'd like to share?
I think it's when when you're creating a podcast and people are commenting and they're reaching out. So like say the language one, there's so many people write on YouTube or whatever, and they're just saying, I love this, thanks very much. It's really helping me. And now I'm progressing a lot better. And say with the awakening, because I'm sharing information on things that say government is trying to push on people and make them do different things that they shouldn't do. I'm just giving different points. I never push my opinion on someone. I just kind of give points. And I always say, look, just check it out. So for example, if you go into Google and you start going, what is this safe or is this not safe? It usually tells you the answer that you ask. So I suggest that people use Brave instead of Google because it's not infiltrated, and also ask different questions. And through that, you get a different answer. So by actually with the say the awakening, the comments that I get from people, I know that they're benefiting from coming in and information that I've shared, guests that I've had on, and they just write, and it's a beautiful feeling. Or even speak, like there's a lot of people they were kind of in my boat. They realize I was not into public speaking. I couldn't go on a stage to where I'm actually going on stage, no problem, and just I could, if you asked me to go on stage in front of 100 people, 1,000 people in the morning, I could do it and it wouldn't phase me. Whereas before, not in a million years could I do it. And I know there's other people, they write and they get that. And for me, I get a lot of value knowing that I'm helping people. And just like even what you're doing and all the different people that are doing this, and say the podcasters out there, people like that, a lot of times people, they're looking at all these top people in the world with their millions of views and everything, and they think, oh, the reality is, if you go in and you're speaking in front of 5 people or 10 people or even 30 people in a room, most people would be delighted to turn up and speak to that amount of people. But they think they're a failure because it's them numbers. But that's massive. Like people will come back the following week to speak again, and maybe there'll be the same 30, maybe 2 or 3 leave, and 3 more come, and it grows a small bit. But it's like, so don't ever make it about the numbers when you're, whether you're podcasting or whatever kind of show you're doing. Make it about the message. If you're doing the message and you're helping people, the people that need it will hear it at the right time. And if you know you've touched somebody's life without even knowing it, it can have the ripple effect. Like, for example, I know loads of people have started a podcast because of me. And I know that there's probably hundreds have learned from them as well. So I don't even know how many people, and who knows that somebody that's creating a podcast that's doing something that's going to change the world, that might have been a ripple effect from 3 or 4 layers deep.
All right, great. Thank you so much for your answer. So, looking ahead, my last question is: can you provide some insights into how you manage your time and responsibilities across your various podcasting projects and businesses?
Absolutely. So I think everybody is trying to learn this. They follow different gurus, and everyone's got their own way of doing it, and they think, okay, I'll copy Brian Tracy and this will work. I'll copy, Tony Robbins. I'll copy this guy. I'll copy that guy. I think you just have to get touch in with yourself and understand what works for you. So for me, I actually write down what I want to do in the day and I just cross it off. And I kind of make a plan of the week, what I'd like to achieve in the week, whether it's the podcasting or the business. I track everything. So I have an Excel sheet with my 5 podcasts and then all the different places where they're shared. So like I'd have BitChute for all of them. I'd have YouTube for some of them and Rumble and everything. And I'm just constantly going in, looking at these different things. And if I see the numbers aren't going up, I go, oh, I forgot to post it here, or I forgot to post it there. And just a tip on for people as well is when you're doing the podcast, a lot of people they just put it out to Facebook. The best thing is to join groups that are relevant to what you're doing. So, for example, with the Polish podcast, I go out to loads of Polish groups in Poland, Polish for foreigners, Polish in Warsaw, Polish in Łódź, but also Polish in New York, Polish in Chicago. So when I post an episode, I blast it out there. Do everybody allow me? No. Do people remove me? Yeah. But do I mind? No, because it just keeps going. And then people that appreciate it, they share it. And they could have a community of people that are kind of maybe dating Polish people. And that way, then you're reaching the right people. So, business wise, just be focused. Try like a lot of times when people are getting into business, they tend to they'll find something and they'll go ahead and do that, and then they'll hear the next thing and they go to. It's like chasing 10 rabbits. Focus your attention on one main thing. Try to get it right. Then once you have got something, try to systemize it. Systemize everything. Have a system for everything. Try to shortcut it. So, for example, my Polish podcast, I edit it, I schedule it. It automatically goes out. So I have that going out on a Monday, a Wednesday, and a Friday, a minute past midnight. And then on the next morning, when it goes out, I then just copy the text and paste it to the video channels. And I could probably have a schedule on them as well, but just that's just the way I do. So if everything's systemized, it doesn't take too long. And I've learned that in life, if you're doing something and you don't enjoy it, stop doing it or outsource it. Get somebody else to do it. And that way, if you love what you do, you're not working. I could be doing plenty on Sunday, Saturday. It doesn't matter because I enjoy it. And once you find your passion, you'll do it anytime.
All right, great. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your incredible journey, insights, and experiences with us today. It has been a truly enlightening and inspiring conversation. So, sir, your passion and dedication to podcasting, business, and personal growth are truly commendable. We are grateful for your time and the valuable insight you will share with us today. And our wonderful audience, thank you for joining us this conversation. If you enjoy this interview and found it as insightful as we did, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel to stay tuned for more engaging content. With that, we bid you farewell and look forward to having you with us again in our future episode. Until then, take care, stay inspired, keep chasing your dreams. Thank you
Thank you
so
very
much,
much.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Have a wonderful day